Episode 31. We are talking World Cup 2026 today, baby. It is Travel Bros. We're going to talk about the World Cup 2026 and everything that has to do with hotels. We are a hotel podcast. So we're going to talk about where the teams are staying. We're going to talk about where we think you should stay to go to the games. And we're going to talk about the best cities to watch a game. There's been a lot of talk. The World Cup is unaffordable, blah, blah, blah. I think this World Cup might be uniquely different in a way. I do think it's still going to be expensive. I think one of the nice things is it's an expanded World Cup. It's the first World Cup with 48 teams, which means you've got 104 games spanning over 40 days. And you've got Canada, Mexico, the United States. It's a lot of games. So I think with the expanded World Cup, you're going to see some games that are not like Brazil versus Argentina. You're going to have a lot of B team, C team type games. So if you just want to go to the World Cup and experience the World Cup, I think there'll be some great opportunities. Before we get started, Jamie, I'm going to throw this over to you. Now, some of these hotels we're going to talk about are in Hilton for Luxury, Hyatt Privé, Four Seasons Preferred Partner, the Accor program. But give us a general summary of, if you allow us to help you book your hotels, what are like kind of the general benefits a lot of these programs provide?
Yeah, so like Joey said, these are in one of the specialty programs that we have. So you're going to get some additional benefits when booking with us. So it's either going to be Hilton for Luxury, Marriott Stars or Luminous, Hyatt Privé, Virtuoso, Accor Hera. It'll be some program where we're able to get you some additional benefits to save you money. Pretty much every program is going to have a similar benefit, may vary slightly, but in general, it's going to be breakfast for two daily, a property credit, usually $100. Some may vary a little bit, or there may be a promo going. Upgrade based on availability, early check-in, late checkout, and typically a welcome amenity of some sort. If you're visiting for World Cup, I'm hoping some of these properties are going to be doing kind of a soccer or football themed amenity, or we can at least request one for you if you have a favorite team that you're rooting for. But if you're already going to be spending a good chunk of money on, visiting one of these cities for World Cup, hopefully we can help steer you in the right direction and save you a few bucks while you're doing it.
Definitely. I appreciate that, Jamie. All right. I have a list. This is the FIFA approved team base camps. This is current as of last week. And some of these teams have got some great hotel stays. Some of these teams don't. Not all the teams are qualified, so we don't know which team will be at which base, but here are the approved hotel options. I'm going to go out of Jamie. Stop me if you have any commentary. But interestingly, Atlanta, Georgia, all of the teams are going to be based in Buckhead, which I found a little interesting. But we've got one team will be at the JW Marriott Buckhead, which, man, it's probably one of the worst hotels in Buckhead, but here nor there from a luxury hotel standpoint. And then just across Lenox Mall, the other team will be at the Intercontinental Buckhead in Atlanta, somewhere I've never stayed, but it's kind of been on my radar. I haven't gotten over there. Interestingly, there's a lot of hotels in Buckhead, so you could be rubbing elbows with some of the teams and their staff for sure in that situation. Chattanooga, Tennessee is also going to be another base camp, and the hotel is going to be called the Reed House. I don't know if it's Red House or Reed House. It seems like it's a kind of an independent historic hotel.
Okay.
I found that kind of interesting, but it's a 241 historic getaway. It's pretty cheap. It's like under $200 a night a lot of nights. I might go stay there when I'm in town. Cincinnati is TBD. That's the one hotel that's not listed. Dallas, Texas will host 3 teams at the Westin Dallas downtown, the Renaissance Dallas at Plano Legacy West. That is a mouthful. I find this hotel really interesting because it is near the busiest mall in North Texas. Like, it's at the entrance. So like, I feel like when this team is here and the fans are there, that could be a little crazy. And then the third team in Dallas is going to be at the Omni Las Colinas Hotel. And then Fort Worth will have one location, the Sheraton Fort Worth Downtown Hotel. The team did not get the auberge like we reviewed, but it happens. Green Bay, Wisconsin has a team, and they're going to be staying at another like independent luxury hotel. It is called Lodge Kohler. Has great reviews, couple $100 a night most nights. So Guadalajara, Mexico, they're going to be at the Hard Rock Hotel Guadalajara, baby. Let's go. That sounds
That's a
like it
fun
could
one.
be fun. Yeah. Indianapolis, they're at the Renaissance Indianapolis North Hotel. Irvine, California, which is south of Los Angeles for you geographically limited people. They're going to be at the Marriott Irvine Spectrum, which is another kind of shocking one because the Irvine Spectrum is like a huge mall, and definitely not like a low key area, but I guess they need high room count hotels, and that's where they are. Man, I feel real bad for some of these Kansas City guys. Kansas City's hosting 3 base camps. Hotel Kansas City is on the list, which I feel like that team's going to be super lucky because they're using the KC Current training facilities. That stadium's brand new. A, B, we reviewed that hotel. We have a whole episode. I will try and drop a link down there if you want to check it out. It's a really fun hotel. I just stayed there. The other two teams in Kansas City, though, one is staying at the Sheraton Overland Park Hotel at the Convention Center, and then the team that's real down bad is staying at the Stonehill Lawrence Trademark Collection by Wyndham. Yeah, can you imagine you make the whole World Cup? It is the only I didn't do like the deepest dive on a lot of these hotels. Interestingly, it looks like it was a Best Western Plus that they've just recently rebranded to a Wyndham. Take that for what you will. All the pictures of it showed as a Best Western Plus on Google. It's the only 3-star hotel I found in this whole list, and it is the lowest Google rating of all the hotels. And the average nightly rate when I poked around was under $100 a night. Not everyone's living large here during the World Cup. Louisville, Kentucky is going to be at the Omni Louisville Hotel. Mexico City is one team's going to be staying, it just says on site with the training facility. So I'm guessing I think the Mexico national team has like a whole facility there. Can't say stay there, so couldn't help you on that one. And then the other team that's listed as Mexico City is the Doubletree by Hilton in Toluca. Monterey is going to be staying at the Westin Monterey Valley, which I have stayed there. It's a serviceable 4-star hotel. I don't think there's a ton of nice hotels in Monterey, which I think will make going there for a World Cup game extra challenging. We're getting close to the end of this list. Hotel DuPont is where a team's going to be staying in Philadelphia. It is a preferred hotel. It is a virtuoso hotel. It is listed as 5-star. It has stunning reviews on Google. It looks really pretty. It's definitely like got an old school. It looks kind of like Hotel Kansas City a little bit. It's definitely built in like a different era of America. Prices are like $400 to $500 a night. It looked interesting. I like some other hotels. I really want to stay at Four Seasons Philadelphia, mostly because I've had some people say it's the best hotel in the world, which I think is an outrageous claim, but I would at least like to go experience it and see for myself. St. Louis, Missouri, you're going to be at the Magnolia Hotel St. Louis. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of this one either. It is right next to the convention center, so maybe they just need some of that space. I really would have thought they would have used, so it is a Marriott property. I would have thought they would have used the Ritz in St. Louis, but you're still at a Marriott. This also is a weird, like kind of have a historic feel hotel. I don't know. Whoever booked all these base camps, I think, has a real penchant for like old school looking hotels, perhaps. I'm not sure. Rounding out this list, Salt Lake City, one team will be living inside the Real Salt Lake Training Academy residence. Probably not a great choice. The second team in Salt Lake City will be staying at the Hyatt Regency Salt Lake City. I've never stayed there, but I've heard
it's only open, what, like a year, maybe 2 now?
Yeah, exactly. Hotel. So you're in a brand new hotel. And the last base camp option is going to be in San Antonio, Texas, and which is odd a little bit because there's no games there, but I guess you're close to Houston and Dallas somewhat from a travel perspective. They will be at the Kimpton Santo Hotel. Thoughts, Jamie? I find it really interesting how many different brands were represented. Like, it's obvious they didn't just go to Marriott and say, hey, we need a hotel in every city. Like, how do you think they, from a travel agent perspective, with your hat on, how do you think they even broker these deals? Like,
I was honestly
calling up hotels and saying, I need 400 rooms, and whoever doesn't hang up on them, they book.
I was actually trying to think about that. I'm like, how do you, like you said, it's not like you're just calling up Marriott and being like, hey, we're going to take a gazillion rooms in a ton of cities. Give us your best deal. I have to imagine for a lot of these hotels, there's a big opportunity cost, right? If you're near in a host city or close to a host city for World Cup, like you probably not to the extent of Super Bowl because there's so many games, but you're definitely able to charge a premium. So I'm sure it was got to be some combo of, okay, who's willing to sell us out their hotel or close to sell us out their hotel, and what will they take for it? Because I mean, that's all I could think, because otherwise I have no rhyme or reason how they pick some of these properties.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's like some independent hotels, I mean, some of these hotels they probably have to pick just based on where the team is training too, right? Like you obviously don't want to
Yep.
be 50 miles from your training ground. I just found it really interesting. There's like some IHG, some Hyatt, some Marriott, some Independence. I feel bad for these guys stuck at the Wyndham. Could you imagine you make it to the World Cup and you're like, oh yay, a Wyndham in Kansas?
Well, I especially think if you're like a popular team, right? I'm sure there's some teams that probably don't travel as well as a very popular, well-funded team. So if you're one of these
Sure.
like big name teams and you get stuck at a Wyndham and you're used to staying at the Ritz, that's probably a shocker.
I imagine that countries have some kind of seniority or priority on who they pick. Like, I'm sure they're not going to let like, you know, Uzbekistan get first dibs on what hotel they pick, but maybe not. Who knows, right? I don't know how all that works. I'm sure somebody might, and they could tell us. But it was an interesting list. Yeah, well, two points. A, I find it really interesting that they just have this list available for people to find that you can say, hey, every team's at all these hotels. And then B, I think the other thing I found really interesting too is like it seems like all these hotels have been bought out. I didn't look at every single one, but I pulled up three or four of them just to be like, oh, could you stay at a team hotel? And no availability. I don't know if they're blocking out the rooms until the teams are finalized and they know, hey, we only need this many rooms, make these available. Because generally, sports teams just integrate with regular, I've stayed at plenty of hotels where like sports teams have
Yep.
been there at the time. So it's interesting. Anyway, that is the base camp list. I thought people might find that pretty interesting where the teams are staying. My last point I forgot to mention, there's no base camps in Canada, which I found particularly interesting, especially because weather wise, I feel like that would be one of the more friendly places to train, but maybe it's just a lack of training facilities because I noticed a lot of these teams are training at colleges, or pro teams and
Yep.
such. So interesting. All right, moving on. I broke down the city. So this is if you wanted to travel where I think you should go. Some people are obviously only going to pick cities based on whatever team they're watching. Some people might want to turn this into like a summer vacation and knock out a couple games. So I kind of ranked these stadiums as like best, better, good, awful. And I've lived in two of the awful cities, so yeah, I can stand up the test of time here. Jamie,
I
you've
was gonna
lived
say,
at least in one
yep. One.
city,
I
right?
was gonna say, I don't know if we hit it yet. When is the World Cup?
Did I not cover? I thought I covered that in my initial intro. Maybe I didn't. It starts June 11th and it ends July 19th, 2026. So most of these game dates are available to book. And there already is a FIFA master calendar telling you where every game is going to be played. If you pull it up on like the World Cup website, the only challenge right now is instead of it being a list of teams, it's like group M16 plays M23 and like the bracket hasn't been filled out. But theoretically, if you don't care about what team you want to see, I think if you could book some flights, get some hotels in the book, make it refundable in case the game's uninteresting or you find something else. But getting ahead of the masses, especially I think once the teams are all qualified, I think you're going to see hotel prices skyrocket and hotel inventory plummet. So if you have the advantage of not caring who you see, or if you can take a good guess, like if the USA wins their group, you can follow the smorgasbord of nonsense and be like, okay, they would be M16, they'd play here. You can kind of like do some guesswork as well. Some games are already set. For example, like since the USA doesn't have to qualify, their first three games are already published. They're going to be playing in LA, Seattle, and LA. I think that's correct. Yes. They're going to do LA on June 12th, Seattle June 19th, and then back in LA June 25th. Canada and Mexico are also qualified for the World Cup because they're a part of it. So those games are set. But short of that, there's a couple teams that have qualified now. But even those teams, they don't know the order or like the priority of where you are. We know they're going. World Cup qualifiers are coming. That will progress. So back to the action here. So I ranked these cities. So let's talk about the best cities I think to go watch a game and why real quick. And maybe you've got some input here. I put number one Atlanta. They're not in an order, but this is like the cities I think that are great. Me and you have both lived in Atlanta, Jamie, and I think for me, this is why I picked Atlanta. MARTA is cheap. It's really simple. It goes to the airport, and I think you could easily go to a game in Atlanta without a car. Land at Hartsfield, hop on MARTA, shoot up. Personally, I wouldn't stay in downtown for me where the stadium is. There are some hotel options. There's a Westin. If you notice, all the teams were staying in Buckhead. That's where I would stay. You have better access to food, entertainment when the game's not going on, I think. And then the advantages, so you land, shoot up MARTA, 45 minutes or so, you're probably in Buckhead. You can walk out to a luxury hotel. The game, you go to 5 Points Station, right? And then it's one, I think it's you transfer there and it's one stop to the stadium from 5 Points. So it's pretty simple. If you stay in downtown, it's even closer. I wouldn't recommend walking anywhere in downtown Atlanta, especially at night for a game, but I'm sure there'll be tons of police and security and things. What's your thoughts on Atlanta as a great option?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good option. I would probably stay downtown and I would walk to the game. So I was a Falcons season ticket holder for years, and I would regularly stay downtown and walk to the game. You go through Centennial Olympic Park. Regularly, I would say, hey, not probably the greatest location, but on game days, there's so many people. You're probably going to have, what, 50, 80,000 people walking back and forth between, the stadium, the city, things like that. So I never had any problems. But yeah, I think Atlanta's a great city. There's really nice hotels. There's great dining options. I mean, flights, you're going to be able to get to Atlanta from anywhere pretty
Anywhere.
easily. Like you said, you don't need a car. And we were actually just talking about how expensive parking can be in a lot of these cities. And for World Cup, I mean, even Atlanta regularly, you could pay $50 to $80, on a weekend night. So World Cup probably be a couple $100. So being able to not rent a car, not deal with that hassle, I think it's a great city.
Especially if you're going to come in and out for a game or 48 hours, I don't think you want to learn where to drive, coming from overseas, how to drive, right? Like, I think
Well, and how many
I agree.
lanes? Seven
Yeah.
lanes each
And then,
way going through Atlanta?
yeah. And then interesting, you mentioned Centennial Olympic Park. If history serves me correct for large events too, that is probably where the like World Cup Fan Fest is going to be for Atlanta, where like you'll be able to watch the other games and stuff. So that's not a bad option. And Atlanta has some of the most games. I think it's second or third behind Dallas and East Rutherford, New Jersey. So yeah, they have 8 games.
Like you could do the aquarium, you could turn it into a long weekend or a mini summer vacation and do some stuff.
Yeah, perfect. And then the upside too, I think before we leave Atlanta, once you're in Atlanta for a game, you can easily get to any other city with a direct flight that's on this list.
I mean, the flights are
Yeah. So I think Seattle was my second great choice. Seattle once again has a light rail from the SeaTac airport that'll shoot you right into downtown. There's a lot of great luxury hotels in downtown. The stadium, which we didn't mention in Atlanta, is indoor, so you don't have to worry about the heat in Atlanta. The stadium is outside in Seattle, but generally the summer is a lot more temperate. Downtown Seattle's not my favorite place to hang out, but I think just from once again a simplicity of you take the light rail into your hotel. Most of the hotels that we're going to talk about in the third section are within a mile of the stadium. So it's pretty walkable. The food scene's nice. If you've never been to America, I think there's a lot of fun. You can do the gum wall, you can do Pike's Place or whatever the
Yep.
market's called. There's enough stuff to do for a couple days. I think what would be really cool is if you could combo. There's a couple dates where like there's like Vancouver, Seattle, Vancouver games and stuff. So like you could even hop on Amtrak and just shoot up to Vancouver, take a simple flight and
Yep.
do kind of like a combo trip there. You can even drive it. I've driven it before to take a cruise. Like I've flown to Seattle and driven up. It's an easy drive as well. The border can be a little annoying, but it's an option.
I feel like you may be able to take a boat. I don't know that 100% for sure. I know when I was there on the waterfront, they definitely had like boats going up to British Columbia, like Victoria. I don't know if they stop in Seattle or stop in Vancouver too or not, but like that could be cool if you could do that.
I think another plus side too, I want to say the fare from the airport to downtown is like $3 on the Seattle light rail. Like it's one of the cheapest. And I think kids under 18 are half price, so it's like $1.50. It's pretty hard to beat from that perspective. My next city is going to be Vancouver. I think one of the biggest upsides to Vancouver is it's so small. It's such a small city. It's very walkable. Once again, the stadium is indoor there. So that is a plus side if you're worried about the weather and things. I think the biggest downside to Vancouver is the airport is not the most connected to a lot of these other cities. Like it's going to be hard from Vancouver to Kansas City, for example, right? Or Vancouver to even like Guadalajara or Miami, perhaps just on distance. You'll be able to find some flights, but you might be looking at a layover getting stuck. But Vancouver is nice, fun, small. And then there's even a hotel we've got recommended that's attached to the stadium. Now, that's probably a pipe dream that you're going to get it for a reasonable price, but it's possible, right? And then that stadium is the Vancouver Whitecaps play there in MLS, but the stadium, they only use the bottom bowl. I think like when Messi came, they used the full thing, but it's a pretty electric seeming stadium, I think, when it's full. I think if you had a good team there, I think that'd be a lot of fun. And Canada's scheduled to play 2 games there. So, I mean, I think I'd even be really interested. I mean, you imagine Canada goes on a
Home game.
hot streak in home. Yeah, I mean, if you know anything from watching hockey, there's a lot of enthusiasm for Canada with Canadians. So that would be something I would consider if you could do it on a good price. And you'd almost hope that hotels would be maybe a little cheaper because a lot of the people going to the game are local for that situation as well. Vancouver doesn't have quite as many games. I think they're at 6 or 7. It's just an easy town to get around. I don't recall off the top of my head the public transit options from the airport, but I know they have one. But honestly, like once you get into downtown Vancouver, you can kind of walk everywhere. Stanley Park's a lot of fun. It's just really pretty. And there's some good hotels, and the Canadian dollar for most people, especially internationally, is a lot more friendly and will get you more value than the US dollar. Now, the other 2 cities I have are also in the United States, in Canada, not in the United States, I meant to say. Toronto. I'll tell you something. I was just in Toronto. I'm probably going to do a full hotel review of where I stayed at the Admore Hotel, which is something new I tried. The cool thing about Toronto now is this $100 million tip right here. So they have finally integrated their Presto card, their like public transit card, into Apple. So, you can like download the car and load it. Don't even have to do that. Someone at the airport taught me this and it's awesome. You can literally just tap to pay with your credit card with Apple Pay.
All right, so you don't even have to do the extra step.
Yeah. So don't load your card, just Apple Pay. Boom. It works for the airport hotel. It works for the subway. I got around town. I want to say it's $8 or $9 for the airport train. And then a lot of the nice hotels are pretty close, either 2 or 3 stops up this train station, or you can stay in some of the bigger hotels. But everything is like in that area. Yorkville is like where the nicer hotels are up north. But once again, you don't need a car. The Canadian dollar for most people, Americans and most other people, is going to get you a lot further. And now that stadium is small, on the smaller side where Toronto FC plays, but it's being expanded to like 65,000 for the World Cup. All their stadiums and convention center are all in that same area by the water. Now, huge tip too is if you can get a chance to fly in and out of Billy Bishop Airport, just as a little bit of a plane nerd thing. It's a really cool airport. It's literally next to downtown. Like you could walk from the stadium to that airport. It's on an island, so you can either take a ferry or walk through an underground tunnel, but all the planes are prop planes. It's a super small airport. It's mostly for local, but there are US flights there too. You can get in and out really quick. It's a great experience. If you're able to fly into Billy Bishop, you don't really have to worry about the train or anything, because you can basically take the subway, this direct subway there on the yellow line, and it's like a 2-minute walk in and out. I mean, you could probably fly into Billy Bishop at 2:30, 3 o'clock and be in your seat for a 5 p.m. game. So like that's how small and simple of an airport it is. Last city I have is Montreal. Now Montreal, I have a little bit of a gripe with. The transit system was on strike when I was there. I was just there for Formula One. So I was there for a major event. Getting to the airport is kind of a pain. There's a bus. The bus system works really well. My big downside from Montreal to Toronto is Montreal has no integration with technology. So you've got to go buy the card, do all that. They said it's going to be changed for the World Cup. They're going to update their systems, but it's not updated yet. But once again, I think value for dollar. The stadium's pretty nice there. Getting to the airport is a little tricky. It is a fixed fee on cabs of $35 US, so 50 Canadian or whatever that comes out to you. But once you're in there, I used the bus system, which worked well, and I used the metro there. Both were decent for sure. Now, our second tier cities, the first one I put on there is Mexico City. I love Mexico City. Great food city, great fun. The biggest downside to Mexico City is the airport is essentially 6 cities away. 6 cities might even be too close. Between traffic and the distance to the airport, getting from the city center where you're going to be staying to the stadium is you're looking at an hour plus, not to mention customs at that airport I find is really slow. And then the other issue is it's not the simplest metro I've experienced. Have you done Mexico City, Jamie?
I haven't. It's been on my list. I've had it booked, and I just have not made it to Mexico City yet.
Yeah. So then my other issue is all the nice hotels are in a certain general area around the big park and museum. I can't recall the name of that park now, but everything basically revolves around there. And people are either staying in Condesa or Polanco, most tourists at least. And so there is like a train and bus lane that will kind of take you not directly to the stadium, but it's not simple. How about that? So if I put in like the Four Seasons, which is a hotel in La Condesa I've stayed at, it is one metro, one bus, a walk, and another metro to get to the stadium. So it's an hour and 14 minutes on the metro or an hour and 2 minutes driving or 22
Whew.
kilometers, which I imagine during the World Cup, it's probably going to take 2 hours. It's just
Yeah,
so,
that's tough.
yeah, it's just so far from where you're going to stay. And there's not a lot of like, it's just like a super suburban kind of out there hotel. I didn't want to put it so far down the list because I do really like Mexico City. I think it's a fun place to go. It's at elevation. It's at really high elevation. Like it's over 8,000 feet. So that kind of changes things up as well. Personally, if you're going to go to a game in Mexico, I would really only consider Mexico City. I would not spend time in Monterrey or Guadalajara. I've never been to Guadalajara, admittedly. I've been to Monterrey. It's not that fun. Like Mexico City is where you want to be in Mexico,
Yeah.
in my opinion. The Estadio Azteca is also like a super famous stadium and has so much history. It's hosted a World Cup final before. So I think that's where you want to go. So I don't even have the other two Mexico cities on the list. The other two cities that I have is Houston and Philly. They have pretty good public transit access. I think once you're at the hotel, all the hotels I picked are either one or two stops on the station within a mile or two walk. I think they're pretty straightforward. I like both of those cities. Houston's stadium is indoor, Philly's stadium is outdoor, but Philly should be more temperate climate. You have any
I was
opinions
gonna
on
say,
either of those two
I
cities?
city.
Yes.
I mean, what's Houston? What, number three in the U.S. city size, something like that? Whatever it is, it's a massive sprawling city.
It is very big. The stadium is indoor, which is nice. And most of the hotels, that stadium is right outside of downtown, and most of the really good hotels are in downtown. So hopefully you
It's
can
fair.
stay indoors a lot. I really
I think
like Philly
Philadelphia
as a
is a.
city too.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Can
I
you
would say,
get to
especially
the
if you're coming from another country.
right? You
I
can go
think
see
that
the
gives you
Liberty Bell.
like, yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, you get a lot of like U.S. history stuff. If you do that, the zoo there is really cool. So if you have little kids, something else to do. Yeah, that's my thing. Especially if you're coming from another country, I think.
That is fair. And I guess the nice thing too is you can also you're very close to either going to a game in you have a lot of easy access to get up to New Jersey or Boston too from there for the games. I was trying to remember, does Philly have is it light rail or what is it that Philly has to the airport? Or is it a subway? I've taken it before. I just can't even remember.
I honestly don't know the answer. I haven't got out of the airport in Philly in a couple of years, probably.
Oh
I think
my
the last
gosh.
time I flew through Philly a couple months ago, but I didn't leave the airport.
Can I tell you a funny fact? Google Gemini is the worst thing ever to exist. So I quickly tried to Google while we were talking, does Philadelphia Airport have a subway? The
Eat
answer from
fresh.
AI is no. Philadelphia International Airport does not have a subway. It is referencing a Subway restaurant
I
in
knew. Oh, I knew that was going to be. Like, ah,
and it goes,
don't eat at Subway. Get a Philly.
but it does have a SEPTA airport line train station that connects to the city center underground.
Okay, that's
Like,
fair.
oh, okay. So it does. It is like looking on Google Transit. It's delayed right now, but it looks like it leaves every 30 minutes from Terminal A and it takes 20 minutes. So, about an hour. Where I've got some of our hotel picks, like I shouted out the Four Seasons, it's a 0.3 mile walk from there. So that seems like a great option. And then you've got a single train line right into where the Eagles play. I can't think of the name of that stadium. There's also a casino next to that stadium. So, for
Oh,
the
sold,
Jamies of the
sold.
world. Here's two cities that I would just avoid. in general. New York, because New York
It's
technically
not New
does
York.
have public. Well, yes, New York technically has public transit. So does New Jersey, but you have to like interface the two. The airports are not connected due to, whatever, local politics, we'll call it. So you're already faced with either having to take a cab to get into the city. And then it's like, where do you stay? Do you want to stay in Manhattan, which sounds great, but then you got to get to East Rutherford, New Jersey. East Rutherford, New Jersey is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It has a famous mall that they spent, I don't know what, $2 billion building,
Yeah.
the largest mall that no one goes to. And people will probably
You
be
can
there
ski
during the
inside
World
though,
Cup.
right?
Yeah,
The
right. You
American
can ski
American.
inside it. I mean, the American Dream Mall will probably be really cool for the World Cup, right? Because it's in that area. Like, it's not generally a place when sporting events are going on, people want to be or people are. The New Jersey Transit Authority, right? NGTA is like, you can get in, it stops a lot. It's old. I feel like it's broken half the time I ride it. I just think New York would be great. I just think logistically it's going to take a lot of work. And then my other thing is that stadium is outdoor and New York gets sneakingly really hot sometimes. Like right now, it is hotter in New York City than it is Dallas, Texas, because they have
Wow.
a heat wave right now. But what I mean, so I'm like, well, okay, it's 90 degrees in Dallas right now. I think it's 95 in New York City. Well, guess what? The stadium in Dallas is at least indoor.
Yeah.
New York's outdoor. I just think if you're well versed in New York and you know your way around New York, have at it. But there's zero chance you're going to be driving there. And then so you're left to learning public transit using Uber or cabs. And just, I think all of those things sound awful. Do you disagree or you agree?
No,
Is that
I
a
would
hot take?
like. I think New York is a great city to visit, but if you're going to New York to go to the World Cup, you're gonna. I mean, you might as well stay in a. I mean, like a crappy hotel in New Jersey that's closer than actually going to New York City and enjoying the city and wasting hours trying to get back and forth. So yeah, I would agree. I probably would not go there for the World Cup.
Yeah. And then San Francisco is my other one. I kind of like San Francisco. The problem is the stadium is in Santa Clara. So it's nowhere near San Francisco. There is a Hyatt Regency Santa Clara, like in the parking lot of the stadium, basically, correct?
Yeah, but it's not a great hotel. Like it's not some luxury hotel, but if you were going for a game, that could be an option.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, this stadium is far closer to the San Jose airport than the San Francisco airport. So that's confusing too. How about this? If you're going to a game in San Francisco, staying in San Francisco is beyond impractical. So I'll just do some live working right here. If you were to stay at the Four Seasons in San Francisco, Embarcario, which I stayed at, it's a great hotel. It was built as a Mandarin Oriental and converted. Right now at it's 8:30 in the morning there. It would take you 1 hour and 46 minutes on the BART to get to the stadium, which involves you taking the BART all the way through Oakland, through Fremont, basically the Great Mall, and then taking a bus the rest of the way to the
Yeah,
stadium. Like,
I'm
how is the
out.
stadium not anywhere near, whatever, here nor there? San Jose Airport might also be a great option for a hotel if you just need to get in and out of there for a game. There is a Tetra autograph collection hotel that actually looks kind of nice that I'd stumbled upon that's in it's like almost in Palo Alto, like kind of by Microsoft's facility. But I didn't even put hotels for San Francisco on our list because it's just it's overly complicated. It's too much. There's just so many easier cities. And then it almost should have been in my worst cities. But the problem I struggled with is San Francisco has a lot of good transit for being what it is. The problem is the stadium's just not in San Francisco.
Location, yeah.
Yeah. So my worst cities to do a game are going to be number one, Kansas City. They do have a new airport. I like the new airport. I just went there and stayed at Hotel Kansas City, which looks like is not an option. I think there's a real lack of luxury hotels or even semi-luxury hotels. The stadium is driving only. It's essentially 20 minutes in the middle of nowhere, and there's just two stadiums: the Chiefs Stadium and the Royal Stadium, in a parking lot that just looks like it. It's a European nightmare. It's like a parking lot that sprawls so far you can't see in either direction other than the parking lot. And then I think the problem too is if you're trying to pop around and do games, Kansas City is really poorly connected. Southwest is its largest airline, so and there's not a lot to do there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not where I would pick. You definitely need to rent a car. There you go. Miami is another one. Completely. And now, if you want to have a great vacation, go to Miami, go to a game, hang out at the beach. There's so many great hotels. From a hotel standpoint, you can pick
Yes.
so many good hotels in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is a lot closer to the stadium once again. Or you could be in Miami Beach. You can have a great time, but you need a car. Public transportation is a mess, and driving in Miami is challenging. It's basically like driving in Latin America almost, I would
Yeah, I
argue
would
in
agree.
most cases. So
They play at Hard Rock down there?
yeah, I'm actually not 100% sure of that, but I'm 90%. There's nowhere else they could play. So yes.
Yeah.
So once again, if you're booking a flight there, closer to Fort Lauderdale Airport than Miami Airport. The nice thing though is I will say for Miami real quick, there's a lot of flight. If you can start looking at Palm Beach, like where the stadium's located, you can do Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, and Miami. So you have a lot of flexibility. And in theory, you could fly into Orlando nowadays and take the Bright Line into Fort Lauderdale Airport. So
That's
you
true.
literally could fly into Orlando, hop on the train to Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, but not my pick. Dallas, my hometown over here, not about it. Arlington, Texas, where AT&T Stadium is the largest city in America without public transportation. So that's a fun fact. There's a couple stadiums really close to the stadium. I think the downside to that is there's nothing to do at the stadium. So like I wouldn't want to be stuck there. So realistically, you're staying far away, you're driving. Dallas traffic isn't as bad as some of these other cities, like Miami and where I'm going to mention next. But the upside of Dallas is it's a really well-connected airport. You have 2 airport options. You can get almost anywhere internationally. You can arrive there. And Dallas is home to the most games for the World Cup. It's the only stadium with 9 games.
Wow.
And then you can very quickly from Dallas, where Dallas is located is probably the closest city to every other stadium. Like if you took the distance from like Dallas to every stadium and added them all up from everywhere, you're probably the closest. You probably have the most sub 3-hour flights to get to other stadiums. Take that what you will. I mean, maybe it's like a cool home base, but you're definitely doing a lot of driving, a lot of logistics. So I would cross it off my list unless you know Dallas and don't mind driving. My last place, and this is the place I would least consider going to a game on this whole list. It is Los Angeles, California. Public transportation kind of exists, but it's pretty impractical. It's pretty non-functional. The airport is connected to nowhere. The upside is there's like 5 airports you can fly into. You can look at Burbank, Long Beach, LAX, John Wayne, even Ontario. If you want to get really creative, you could fly into Palm Springs or San Diego since you already got to drive. You could technically fly into San Diego, get on the Pacific Surfliner, and go to LA. You could theoretically actually take that train all the way to Vancouver if you had 2 or 3 days to kill and love trains. I've done it from Seattle to LA. It's a really long train. Definitely get a sleeper car. I did not do that, and that was very regretful by the end. The problem with LA is just where the traffic is awful at all times of day. The World Cup's going to make it worse. Where the stadium is hard to get to, and there's really no practical hotels that you can stay at near the stadium. You know, obviously everybody knows Los Angeles. Everyone's going to want to be in LA. But I mean, this is how laughable it is, okay? One of the hotels I'm going to recommend is 13.4 miles away. Okay, 13.4 miles. So a half marathon away. Public
Faster to run it than
transportation.
drive.
How about this? I'm not that fast, but I'm pretty close. The public transportation time from right now, from the city to the stadium, clocks in at 1 hour and 42 minutes at this very moment.
So an above average runner could run it faster than they could drive it.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And this is at 8:41 in the morning. So this is in LA right now. So that's like prime work time. So it's like, hey, you want to go 13
fast.
miles? Yeah, sure. An hour and 42 minutes on the train. Even driving right now, it says you're looking at 45 minutes, and that seems generous. So yeah, it's not great. And then that's putting you in a hotel in Santa Monica, which is like somewhere where you want to be for the stadium. If you really need to go to a game at SoFi, personally, I would just stay by LAX. Like I would kind of look at getting a airport hotel if you don't need the whole experience, and just, you know, I don't even know. Realistically, walking might be the best option from there. Like if I just threw in, oh, hold on, I just messed this up. Like there's a Hilton at the end of the airport. From the stadium to the Hilton is a 1-hour walk. You know, something to think about. And even this, so that's a 3-mile distance. It says right now it is a 15-minute drive, which is atrocious, or a 43-minute public transportation. 43 minutes to go 3 miles. So,
That's crazy.
yeah, it's a little rough. I'll be curious to see how these LAX hotels fare, but there's a lot of them. There's a Hyatt Regency. There's a lot of stuff there. I personally, if you're going to go to LA, pick some nicer hotels and get out of town. But that is just me. Moving on, Jamie, to the main event, if you will. I've got a list of hotels in some of these cities we mentioned. I think you should consider staying at. You've already mentioned at the beginning, most of these hotels fall into a couple different programs, whether it's Marriott Stars Luminess, Hilton for Luxury, Corhera, Virtuoso, Four Seasons Preferred Partner. They all generally have very close benefits. Breakfast for two, there's some kind of property credit, $75 to $200, depending on the type of room, which property, early check-in, late check-out, which I think some of that stuff could be huge for these games. Now, a lot of those are occupancy constricted. Like if they're sold out, they can't, offer you some of that. But I think having the option is great. I also think most of these hotels will prioritize bookings from travel agents because there's a relationship there. And I would much rather, especially in an oversell situation, be someone that has been booked with a travel agent through a direct program. I mean, you're essentially booking direct to the hotel with us, plus this benefit is on your thing, versus being on Expedia or something, because those are going to be the first people kicked out the door. And who wants to fly in to go to their first World Cup game and be like, oh, sir, we're walking you to the Hampton Inn 6 miles away. Good luck. And the reality is that's probably going to happen a lot because your hotels oversell, correct, Jamie? Like that's just the net.
Oh yeah,
they're
that
going to
happens.
sell to 105, 107%. The problem is everyone's going to show up for the World Cup game. It's definitely going to be an interesting situation. But anyway, we would love to help you book. You can link in our bio or down in the comments in YouTube or however you find us, or go to travelbrospod.com. We'd love to help you out, provide some info for your World Cup trip. So here's our hotels. Why don't you start with Atlanta and I'll do the next one. We'll go one for one.
Yeah, I like this list we have for Atlanta. I know we talked about a couple different Buckhead options, and then my preference for downtown. We've got Waldorf Astoria Buckhead, which this used to be a Mandarin Oriental, so this is a really nice property. I think this is a great option, part of Hilton for Luxury. We've got St.
Huge
Regis
base
Buckhead.
rooms.
Yeah. What are they, like 550 square feet? I remember. I mean, they're big, whatever they are. They're over, or are they bigger than that even?
I think they're like 800 and 900 over there. They're big. You
They're big.
run through
Yeah,
the
I
list and
agree.
I'll look it up real quick.
The other one we've got on here, this is St. Regis Buckhead. Again, right? You can't go wrong with St. Regis. Beautiful property, good location in Buckhead, easy access to, food, entertainment, malls, things like that. Tons of stuff over there. And then my go-to, I've stayed here a bunch of times, usually prices out pretty reasonably for a Ritz-Carlton, but Ritz-Carlton Atlanta, it's walkable to the stadium, 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. There's some dining and stuff walkable there as well. It's a good Mexican restaurant right next door, but it renovated right before COVID, so 5-ish years ago, just completed renovation. So the rooms are still really nice. They did a great job renovating their fitness center. So this was always my go-to if I was going to spend a night in the city after a Falcons game or something like that. So this would be my probably go-to in Atlanta.
You were correct. It's 550.
I knew that's still a really big room.
It's a really big room. I think last time I was there on a Hilton for Luxury deal, they upgraded me to the one king bed like corner. So I was like thinking of that
Ooh,
size in my brain, which is over 1,000 square feet. It's also just a really pretty building. Like
yeah,
just it's
that's a nice spot.
huge and it was really well built out. Um, so I do think those are some great options for Atlanta. I'm gonna take and tackle Seattle. We've got the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. I love the Fairmont brand. Internationally, people probably are more familiar with Fairmont and Accor than here in the States, but a great option. They always provide good benefits. It's within a mile walking distance to the stadium here. So that's nice. All of these hotels are within a mile of walking distance. Some of them are just on a mile, but they're right there. Four Seasons Hotel in Seattle, I think, is one of the best locations of anywhere. And then when you're doing non-stadium stuff, I think the Four Seasons is a great entry to knock out most stuff in town. And then this third hotel, Jamie, I think you told me you stayed here before, correct? It's Hotel 1000 LXR. What do you think about that place?
Yeah, I stayed there, I don't know, maybe 2-ish years ago now. I only did one night before a cruise. I really liked it. I was able to, walk down to like the waterfront area from there. The room's really nice. It was actually still it was just renovated, and they were actually still renovating like the downstairs when I was there. So I imagine it's obviously done 2 years later, but the rooms were newly renovated. I think we got upgraded. I don't know for sure. I remember one of the really cool features was the bathtub in the room. It actually filled from the ceiling with like a solid stream of water. So I thought that was kind of neat. I had never seen that in a hotel before. So the rooms were really
Oh,
neat, very modern feeling.
oh, I just found a video of this tub.
It's pretty cool.
That
I'd never seen something like
man,
that before, so I thought it was neat.
that man, that seems like I don't know. In my head, I'm just like, man, that seems like a really easy thing to go poorly.
Yeah.
But, not my hotel, not my problem.
Can we pause for 1 second? My laptop is
Sure.
literally about to die.
Sure.
I'm gonna plug this in. I'm gonna message you, but it's showing like 4%. I don't want it to die while it's uploading.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
let
go
me
get it
plug this
plugged
in.
in.
I only have one USB port, so when I unplug to plug this in, I'm gonna lose my camera. So just give me one
Oh,
second.
got it.
So that's why I was like, it's not that I don't have a plug here, but it showed that I had like 2 hours back. Yo,
Cool. And then up next, we've got Vancouver. Things might look a little different. We lost Jamie there for a second, but he's returned in some capacity. We've got the Rosewood Hotel, Georgia. I love Rosewood hotels. Amazing F&B, good location. Fairmont Pacific Rim. Be careful when you're booking Fairmonts in Vancouver because there's like 3 of them. I think they're all pretty serviceable and nice, but the Pacific Rim is definitely the highest end of them as an option. And then I've got the JW Marriott Park Vancouver, which is essentially attached to BC Place, or could not be much closer. So great option if you can obviously get that as well.
yeah.
Why don't you give us a rundown of Toronto there, Jamie?
I was gonna make one comment on these Vancouver hotels. When you think Fairmont in Canada, you typically think like castle in the woods, like these like very, I'd say like historic, like rustic. The Fairmont, particularly Pacific Rim, and I believe the other Fairmont there, Waterside or whatever it's called, they're very modern looking, right? It's not what you think of typically when you think of like a Canadian Fairmont. If you like modern, like sleek hotels, I think that's a good option.
Maybe that's a whole podcast in itself. We should talk about how the Fairmont chain in Canada used to be the Canadian Railroad Hotel.
I mean, I love them. I love those hotels.
But I learned, interestingly, was it from you or somebody? I can't even recall now. Oh, maybe it was maybe it was when I was in Canada. Someone was telling me about this, that they actually, the Canadian Hotel Railroad Association or whoever owned those hotels, bought the Fairmont San Francisco and basically took the name
Oh,
from
interesting.
that hotel.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. And then Raffles bought them, and then whoever bought them, and now it's all Accor. But that might be a cool episode one day, neither here nor there. But you are correct. Those are both Fairmont, Pacific Rim, and Fairmont Waterfront are both very modern, normal hotels.
Going to Toronto.
Perfect.
Next.
Toronto.
Staying in Canada. All right. So Toronto, we've got 3. I think these are 3 really good options. So we've got Park Hyatt Toronto. If you're into staying under the Hyatt Privé brand, we've got Four Seasons Toronto, and then Ritz-Carlton Toronto. I feel like we did a Ritz-Carlton Toronto episode. I know I stayed there, I don't know, 6-7 months ago now, and I really like the hotel. I believe they're all fairly similar location-wise, walkable to the stadiums. So what, 10, 15-minute walk or so to the stadiums or stadium. So I think Toronto's very serviceable, nice hotels. I think you got a ton of options there.
Park Hyatt and Four Seasons are a smidge further. I will say they're about 1.5 miles, 2 miles just straight north of the stadium, versus some of the other options. I will say though, it's a easy shot on the yellow line. I think I forget it's 6 stops just straight down. I personally, you were at the Ritz, which is closer to the stadium, which I think is like a 2-minute walk. I like being up north a little bit. I like a lot of the museums, the university, the better food, I feel like is up where that Four Seasons and Park Hyatt are. Downside to that Four Seasons is generally it is grossly overpriced, but there are a lot of other good options out there as well.
Where are we off to next?
Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas, I got the Four Seasons Hotel. Again, it's actually usually a pretty good value as far as Four Seasons go. And it's right on the red line, so it's a straight shot to the stadium. The one hotel that is not on public transit, like directly, it's a little bit inconvenient. I had to add it. It's actually really high on my list of hotels to go stay at. It's called the Post Oak at Uptown Houston. We have made an episode about the Auberge Bowie House in Fort Worth, and I called it the best luxury hotel in Texas. I would say 30 of our 150 comments we got across social media were people saying this hotel is nowhere near as good as the Post Oak at Uptown Houston. So I haven't been there, but there's a lot of passionate people that say it's really good. It's the least convenient of my three options, but it's seemingly A plus hotel. My other option would be the JW Marriott Houston downtown. I've stayed there. It's a normal JW Marriott. It's also right on the red line. It'll shoot you straight to the stadium. What do you have for
I may be
Philadelphia?
wrong. All right, so we're going to Philadelphia. We got Ritz-Carlton Philadelphia on here. We've got the Rittenhouse. What program is that on? Is that Virtuoso?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And then one that we talked about a little bit in the beginning, and we've heard fantastic things. Neither one of us have stayed there yet, is the Four Seasons Philadelphia. Joey's heard it's the nicest hotel in the world, which is I mean, I don't care how good it is. It's going to be a hard sell for me to tell me a hotel in Philadelphia is the nicest in the world, but it means it has to be a really nice property. Was it Bethany Frankel says that it's the nicest hotel in the world?
And I have to say, she's
I
at
was going to
least
say
probably
well
stayed in a
traveled.
lot of actual
Yeah.
nice hotels.
Yep. So
So
that's a high praise.
it is high praise. So real quick, the Ritz Carlton is like literally right on the subway. The Rittenhouse is very close. The Four Seasons is a little bit of a walk, but it's super small. Rittenhouse is also a hotel that is part of leading hotels of the world. It's a Michelin Key hotel. It is consistently rated as Philadelphia's #1 independent luxury hotel. So I wanted to throw that in there just, to have a good non-chain, option of a hotel that's done really well. And then on to Dallas, my hometown here. This is a tough one because, like I said, you're doing a lot of driving no matter what your option is. I actually put the Auberge Bowie House in first. This is the reason why. Interestingly, because it's actually located in Fort Worth versus Dallas, I think you're going to have most people coming to the World Cup just looking up Dallas hotels or Arlington hotels, where Fort Worth is only 20 minutes from the stadium, but I don't think a lot of people are going to naturally be looking over in the Fort Worth direction. So I think there's a real chance to stay there, stay at a luxury hotel within a 30-minute drive of the stadium, which everywhere is going to be 30-minute drive to the stadium, in a very luxurious accommodation for not the same premium as if you pick the Dallas side. So something to throw out there. The other hotel I picked is the Crescent Hotel Fort Worth. Same principle with that hotel, where I think you're just going against the flow of traffic in search for there. Both those hotels have really good reviews. And so I think they're both pretty fantastic options. My third pick is going to be the Ritz-Carlton Las Colinas, which is actually the original Four Seasons Las Colinas. It got deflagged during COVID. I think it's a pretty good option. It's kind of in a food desert. Like that is really where the semiconductor boom in the 80s happened. And there's not a lot of housing or good food around there, but it kind of puts you halfway between Dallas and the stadium in a luxury property that I think maybe a lot of people won't pick as well. So just throwing that out there. And you got our last city on the list, Jamie, Los Angeles. Hit us with it.
So I'm going to hit these hotels. I'm going to let you probably talk about location a little bit because this is definitely not a city that I have spent much time in or super familiar with the locations. Oceana, LXR, Santa Monica. This is a hotel that I've actually really wanted to stay at personally. I had it booked last summer, I think, was when I was planning on doing a Pacific Coast Highway, and this was going to be one that I hit on the way down. Obviously, I never took that trip, so I didn't stay here, but this property looks amazing. It's kind of got like this, what you call it, like a retro kind of vibe to it, like right by the ocean. So it looks really cool. So this is one that if you were picking a hotel, not based on location, because I don't know how great the location is, this would be probably my #1 choice for hotels here. We've got Fairmont Century Plaza, and then we've got the West Drift Manhattan Beach Autograph Collection. So if you were saying location wise, which one would you pick best location, easiest to get to?
So none of them are great. I used to live very close to Fairmont Century Plaza. I picked that because it's kind of in an area where I don't think most people are going to pick. You're by Century City Plaza. You can kind of take the back roads of Culver City to the stadium. It's a pretty newly renovated hotel. It's also large. Personally, I'd like to be at the Oceana LXR if I had my choice. The issue is that's the hotel I referenced all of that public transit data from, where it's an hour and 48 minutes to go the 13 miles and, whatever. But I think if you're just saying, hey, I'm going to do a really long, fun weekend, you can't beat Santa Monica. You're close to Venice, and then you just suffer and go to the game for the day and come home. West Drift Manhattan Beach Autograph Collection used to be the Marriott Manhattan Beach. For being where it is, it's an incredible location to the stadium. It's probably the most convenient. Interestingly, as far as I'm aware, every team that plays LA Galaxy as the away team, they stay at this property. It's kind of catered, I think, two football teams and stuff already. Obviously, it's not on the list of I was actually kind of shocked. It was not a hotel that was like on a list of base camps, but I think the lack of facilities near there maybe or the option. But it has a golf course. There's a lot of really good food around. If you are going to try and how about this? If you're going to try and approach LA without a car, I think the West Drift Manhattan Beach is probably the best, just because that strip of road has like everything. My parents used to live on that street. I can't even think of the name of it now, but there's like a Costco. So you can eat at Costco every day if you really want to. It's a little bit of a walk to Costco, but there's like outdoor strip malls filling this whole street. So there's everything, Chipotle, Sweet Green, Mendocino Farms, any type of food you can think of. There's a McDonald's, anything you need is kind of in that walkable area, as long as you don't mind walking a half mile or so. The Oceana would also be great, but I think you're going to find you can get around Santa Monica without a car, but I think getting to the stadium and stuff can be tricky. You might have to rely on Uber, which is not my first pick. But those are some of our hotels. A few of these we've featured independently. We've stated some. We can help you stay in lots of other hotels in all these other cities as well. This was just kind of a sample to give you some ideas of where I think you could have an elevated stay during the World Cup. So like I said, Jamie's barely hanging on with his webcam at this point. He's living it up in Lake Como. He took some time out to talk World Cup soccer with us. We appreciate it. TravelBrosPod.com. We will help you get some amazing benefits at these hotels. Any last thoughts, Jamie, other than that this is the best podcast we've ever recorded?
Best podcast we've ever recorded. I think this is our first one we recorded like from a hotel, possibly.
This is correct. So I thought about it. I brought my stuff on my Asia trip, but
so technical
we
difficulties.
Never made it happen, so congrats.
We're learning. I need to figure out how to charge my laptop while we record and have the webcam connected. Figure that out. And then I think we'll probably do an episode on this hotel, which is one of my favorite hotels in the world, Grand Hotel Victoria in Lake Como.
Can you tell us the name?
Grand Hotel Victoria in Lake, technically Menagio. This is my second time here. I love it. Family loves it. It'll be coming up in the next couple episodes, so check it out.
Perfect. And this is all assuming that the hotel Wi-Fi there actually uploads this video.
Yes, fingers
Jamie's
crossed.
I'm at 99%. Jamie's at 21%.
This next section is only at 4% right now, so let's see how it goes.
Oh boy!
But it's plugged in. Okay. I'm gonna let it sit here and go.
Thoughts and prayers of Jamie's laptop. He can go hang out at the beach club all day, and hopefully this thing gets uploaded.
I'll see you guys.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the best episode ever. We'll see you next week.